I've had some conversations in this last week with two individuals who actually are. One is he's house hacking already. He bought a duplex, and the other one has an Airbnb in Arvada, right? So the irony is, like, if you go into your database, Lisa, and you ask, where are you at in the life cycle of this house, and where does investing lie in your ideology of real estate? If you rated that 0 to 10, where is that? And then finding out that larger percentages of people, they're just like, I just don't know. I don't know how to do it. I don't think we can qualify for a second mortgage, right? Meaning a second home, right? So then teaching, and that's where like the lender comes in, teaches them how we're going to offset the rent if they need it with 75% of the lease, and helping them see the potential is there. But then back to Wes's point, teaching them that cash flow isn't the only part of it. Like Wes, the point of the tax sector that I touched on, if someone took an example of those 10 buckets of what that is for the year and asked the guy, okay, so we took your depreciation and your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance, and if you had a property manager and you had all these expenses on the Schedule E, and that became this much of a loss, which was going to yield this much of a deduction, and at your tax bracket, this much in dollars. If you adjusted your W-4 without respect for principal reduction by the tenant, and start teaching them that it is more about just pure cash flow. Now, if that's an affordability thing for that individual, then that's a different story. But from just my way of thinking about this, the novice approach of, well, if it doesn't cash flow, it's not worth my time. Well, when you look at the value of the future value of that property, tell me 2.7 million in 30 years isn't worth people's time. So I don't know if that gives you any thoughts there, Wes. Billy, do you have any thoughts?
All right, there it is. It wasn't letting me unmute. It's like, what the hell? Yeah, so a lot of thoughts. And I know it's 7 o'clock on a Wednesday, so try not to, open Pandora's box here. But, one thing that I would say to you, Lisa, on the, everybody's on the fence. What I did with a client just over the weekend. Now this is in Texas, but I think it works across any state. Is we've been working with this guy since March, and he hasn't been rate sensitive, payment sensitive, but he saw a house that he liked in an area that he liked, and when we're partner agents with a local vacation rental property manager, and had them do a rental estimate breakdown, and it came in lower than what we were anticipating, but he loved the area. He loved, the potential for it long term. So when we were able to actually show him the numbers behind it with the rental estimate, and be able to educate him on, the continued rate of growth for rent, but also really diving into what was his play. Is it a short-term play where you want to rock out cash flow and you want to have a certain cap, or is it something that you're going to own for the foreseeable future? Ray, like you said, what's your legacy play, and are you going to pass it down? And after analyzing it for 2 days, he realized with the education and putting the deal in front of him with the numbers behind it, of estimating everything, that it actually is going to be a long-term play, and he wasn't so much concerned with immediate cash flow. So he's going to make a move on it this week. So seeing that, and then we also had an actual deal. Again, it was a short-term rental that we sent to a number of people in our database about 2 weeks ago, and we put numbers behind it through AirDNA and having the rental breakdown and being able to show a lot of people the numbers behind it. We got people that came out of the weeds that, you know, hadn't responded to us in 9 months. And it's because we actually showed them a deal with numbers behind it. Now, we didn't get as far as, you know, looping in a lender and having payments, which I think that probably would have sealed the deal for quite a few people if we would have taken that approach. But it was just on a whim that, you know, we did an AirDNA breakdown on a property, sent it out to a number of people, and yeah, we had a number of people that came out of the weeds. So with that, I would say what I'm realizing is the ones that are on the fence, I think we need to continue to show them the data. We continue to show them the graphs and the history and kind of what the predictions are. But also, I think we really need to give them real life examples of, hey, if you were to take this property, I mean, you know, find a house in Baker, you know, and say at this price point, you know, where our property manager is estimating rents at X. And, you know, if you took out a HELOC on your current property just to buy a rental, you know, this is not somebody who's looking to buy their next forever home. But, you know, and sending it to people and giving them the numbers behind it. I think that's what people are wanting to see, because you can really overcome the fear of a, you know, 6% interest rate if you put, you know, an AirDNA report or something from a property manager who, you know, manages a portfolio of local properties behind an actual address. And we all know real estate porn triggers that emotion. And when you trigger that emotion, that's when people really get involved. So, you know, I think we continue to show them, you know, the data, the graphs, and the history. But I think really how you get people off the fence is showing them a real life example, something that's active on the market, something that you've come across. Just my 2 cents of, you know, recent experience that we've had with a few leads. Now, whether they pull the trigger and buy, I don't know, but it at least got them to respond to us. I don't know if that's helpful, Lisa, but that was like an aha moment this past week.
Yeah, it sounds like something that we need to do. I mean, it's got to bring somebody out, because right now buyers are wishy-washy and they're just taking their time, you know. Of course, it's the time of year too. I mean, usually it always picks up after Super Bowl is what we have traditionally always seen, but you know, they've been nervous interest rates, but I think they're getting adjusted to them. And when you look in the history of interest rates, I think we bought our first house and it was almost like between 12 and 14% interest. So today's interests are not bad. They're not great, but
yeah, relatively speaking, you know, it's not bad. And you know, something that I would add further onto that, Ray, is I'm sure you see this all the time where somebody comes to you and they think that their price point is capped at 700, and then they find themselves looking at real estate porn, and you know, all of a sudden they're looking at something at 800 or 850. And when you give them that breakdown of, hey, this is what we're looking at with cash due at closing and monthly payment, and actually putting real life, you know, real bullets behind it, all of a sudden it's, holy shit, you know, we actually can afford that, instead of, you know, we all know the lazy lenders out there that will just, they'll send a client a pre-approval and say, yeah, I got you up to $1 million, but don't give the facts and the data behind it. So I think, again, I think people are really nervous because of what they're hearing in the media and what they're hearing out there. And when you can actually drill down and give a real life example of something, and that's where I just realized that, you know, given that example, we probably could have nailed the coffin shut on a few of them if we roped you in, Ray, and had a lender breakdown on some of these when we were.
I like charts. I like
about
what you're
cash
saying,
flow.
Billy. Yeah, I like the charts. Like I'm a big homer on pulling these things into my presentations. Like, look, this one right here is data from Freddie Mac, right? And it shows that we didn't go below 5%. We touched into the fours, 03, 05. But really, if you look at interest rates, it was 2010, right? So 2010. So when you can draw this out and show people that, look, it was only 2010 when we first breached 5% for the first time. This party for the last 12 years isn't history. This is the history of interest rates back here, right? And then also, this is the actual chart, you guys. And what I like about this one that Federico put in for the history of home prices, these gray bands are recessions. And look at the home prices. We know what happened here. We know why that was caused. What's that? Not Sharon?
Nope.
I'm struggling with the screen share tonight. It's one of those nights. The screen share Zoom is not flowing.